Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Shadows Podcast. I'm your host, Trip Bodenheimer, and today I am joined by Nerissa Figueroa. She is first and foremost a proud mother. It goes without mentioning. Then 20 plus years of experience in the fitness industry. She was Miss Fitness Arizona 2009, 2010. Ma'am, thank you very much for joining us here on Shadows Podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we're going to go ahead and kick things off with a couple of
Okay.
rapid fires.
All
So
right.
first, what is something you don't mind paying extra money for?
Something I don't mind paying extra money for. I would probably have to say coaching. Coaching, I think, is something that I definitely would pay extra money for. And obviously, you get what you pay for, just like in a lot of other things. Because I think coaching is so important for everyone in different aspects of life, whether it be business or fitness or so forth. And I've had coaches in fitness as well, especially when I went to compete. And the way some people have approached me was, they're like, why do you need a coach? Because you already are a coach, a trainer, you're very motivating and so forth. But I compare it to, well, I may have my pro card and so forth, but just like an NFL player, they make it to the pros and they still have coaches. So they don't make it to the pros and say, okay, I got this, I'm on my own now. They have, all types of coaches and trainers to help guide them. And same thing with business. I listen to webinars and so forth to help increase my business and know where I'm going and get different ideas. So coaching, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think I read an article the other day about like Russell Wilson and the trainers and the chefs and the coaches he has around him that he pays additional for. Okay. What is it that makes you so unique?
I think what makes me so unique is that I can relate to several different aspects of life as far as being a parent is concerned, um, having a busy schedule, having some medical issues that I can relate to other people with. And I'm able to really build relationships with people, not because I just want business, but because I think I'm the type of person that tries to relate and put myself in their shoes.
Yeah.
So when I do that, I try to understand the situation. I think one of my biggest things, and sometimes we all have to remind ourselves that if you want to be understood, you have to be understanding.
Ooh.
So I think that helps tremendously.
Yeah. There's that quote. I like that.
Yeah.
That'll go on the Instagram page.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot. You've done a lot.
Yeah.
And doing my research on you and everything, I was like, wow, she's got a lot of accolades. But what is something that you are afraid to try?
Oh, afraid to try. I think I'm afraid to try. I think in the fitness aspect is triathlons because of the swimming part. Because I know how to swim, but I'm not a great swimmer. And I've actually trained athletes to do triathlons and marathons and so forth. And I help them to get stronger for their swim and their cycle. However, I have that issue because I've heard different things about so many people in the water and they're, hitting your feet, hitting your arms, grabbing you. I'm like, oh, so I think I'm definitely a little bit scared of trying a triathlon. So
almost like you psych yourself out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, nope.
If you could try a job for a day just to see what it would be like, what would that job be?
Oh, goodness. A job for a day. I think I have a couple of them, but I think it would be a surgeon. Be a surgeon for a day. Yeah. And I think at that aspect of it is that I've been able to actually be in surgeries observing, and it was just phenomenal where I was in the background observing it and they were like right in there doing everything. And it's so fascinating because they have to know every part. They have to be exact. They have to know everything that's going on. And so I think it would be something to do with surgery, because, you're also helping people to be better.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So, yeah.
I don't know if I would want to be on the table for that,
No.
that one day.
Not on the table.
but definitely interesting. Okay. So
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about you, upbringing, your childhood.
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, I was born and reared in Houston, Texas, and I have a brother and two sisters. So definitely a busy household. My parents are from Mexico, and but I was born again in Houston. We were all born in Houston. We lived there for a while, and so my parents worked really, really hard, and my dad worked 7 days a week nonstop, and moved us into Houston, into the suburb area that was kind of on the outskirts. So if you know Houston, it's close to Katy, Texas. So right in there. And I've kind of moved a little bit, because in 8th grade, he wanted to open a hardware store with my uncle in Monterrey, Mexico. And so we moved over there, actually 7th grade, moved over there in 7th. And so I was over there for a little while. So I'm bilingual. I can read, write, speak Spanish. And at the time, obviously I was a kid, I was very resistant to it, because there I was in junior high, and, oh, I don't want to move, my friends. And, but after being there and going to school there and making friends, I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to leave. So, and then we moved from there to South Texas for 2 years, and then back to Houston. So I've kind of moved a little bit. I went to school in East Texas, and then came back and actually moved to San Antonio, because my sister was here in San Antonio going to school. So I'm like, let me try San Antonio. And I love it here. And I got married here, and my ex is military, and he was in for 30 years. So
Wow.
2 years after I married him, I gave birth, and 2 months later, we were supposed to move to Turkey. So it was my first baby, and he was born 2 months early. So I was taking a small baby with me. So I was very concerned and worried, because at that time, the Gulf War, had already been going on. And I think we had gone into Iraq at the time. That's when we went in. But I went, and same thing. I was kind of worried about it, but we were there 2 years. I absolutely loved it. I loved Turkey. It was phenomenal. So that's when I started working for the military. So I worked for the military for about 9 years, almost 10 years. And I worked as a program director at the community center. So it was great, because we had a lot of the airmen coming in who were just there for a short while and leaving. We got to know a lot of people at the community center, because they were coming to use our facility a lot. So it was really great being there, because you saw so many different sides of it. And then from there, we went to Davis-Monthan. So I was at Davis-Monthan for 5 years, and I loved it there as well. Made great friends. I still have a lot of friends there.
Miss it.
I worked as a community center director first, and then I switched over to the Hawk, and I became the health and fitness specialist for the base. And I worked there for quite a while, and then later moved back to San Antonio to be closer to family and so forth. But yeah, so it's been a great experience. And as far as work is concerned, and always been in fitness, and decided to start competing when I lived in Tucson.
And that was going to be my next question for you, is because that's where I first met you, was in Tucson. And what was it that sparked your interest to where it's you kind of took it from, okay, I'm just working out, to the competing level?
I think what it was, I was already the health and fitness specialist at the base, and I had 2 children already. My daughter was 2.5, and I had always worked out and so forth my whole life. And previously, I used to watch the Miss Fitness USA competitions on ESPN. They used to air them. And so there were the ones where they would do the fitness routines and so forth. And so while I was at DM as a health and fitness specialist, I went to a conference, and it was in Las Vegas. And it was an exercise conference and at the Rio. And at the same time, the Miss Fitness USA competition was going on at the Rio. So for all the attendees of the fitness symposium, health and fitness symposium, they gave us tickets to go to the competition. So I was sitting in the audience just in awe of all the competitors, like, oh my God, I've always seen this on TV. Now look at them. And so I was sitting there, and this guy that was sitting next to me, he worked for the YMCA. He had some big position at the YMCA. And so we were chatting about health and fitness, and he's like, well, why aren't you up there? And I was just like, I had to pause, and I was just thinking, why aren't I up there? So that's what, as soon as I came back, I started looking for online coaching for fitness competitors, and I started. So that's where it all started. It just clicked. I was watching the show, and it clicked from there, and I just went and I just started doing it.
And it goes back to that first question, coaching.
Yeah. Yep, so, exactly. Where I knew what I was doing fitness wise, but competing is a whole different realm. It's a different realm. It's completely different. So you start understanding the importance of nutrition more and more and more when you go compete.
I think nutritionists are so undervalued.
Oh my gosh, it's completely undervalued. And I learned that a lot too. And I always give kudos to, I don't know if you know, if you remember Cindy, she was at the Hawk too. And her name was Cindy Davis, and she was a nutritionist, dietitian, excuse me. And she did the nutrition part for the Hawk, and she was phenomenal. She taught me so much, worked with her for almost 5 years, and she taught me a lot. And we're still friends as of this day. And I really learned the importance of nutrition and everything it does for you.
Yeah, I personal trained for about 6 years, and we had a separate nutritionist, and we weren't allowed to give any type of nutritional tips to anybody. And I would have people come in, and I'm like, I definitely recommend you go talk to the nutritionist as well. And they're like, nah, I just need to lift weights and do cardio. I'll be fine. I'm like, that is so much more to it than just that.
Not just competing wise, but overall in life, your eating habits are 75% of your health. So there's 75% of it. You could work out every day, but if you're not on top of your eating habits and the healthy nutrition, you're not going to see a lot of changes. So I
totally agree. So to kind of backtrack just a little bit, when you were in college, is that where you became a certified group instructor?
Yes. I became a certified group instructor. It's going on 30 years. I got certified in 91.
You were kind of hesitant saying that. You're like, it's been 30 years.
Okay, baby. I got certified in 91. So I always tell people I'm giving my age away, but that's okay, because I like them to know that, hey, I've gone through all this experience, and health and fitness has changed tremendously. Like back then it was all no pain, no gain, and boom, 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 boom. And a lot has changed since then. So we know how to do things better, and it keeps changing. You probably know that as well, that it keeps changing. One year something may be good for you, and then they find out 5 years later this is better for you, or don't do that, or so it goes. There's been a lot of changes since then.
I always think it's funny when you see people like talking and they start getting heated over something like flaxseed, and someone's like, it's great for you. No, it's not. And just because of what they just saw posted somewhere. So after that, we talked about the competition piece. You went and competed Miss Fitness Arizona 2009, 2010. What was that experience like?
It was actually phenomenal. And going back to when I was at the symposium and that guy said, why aren't you up there? It just ignited me. And I don't think it was, I tell everybody I'm just like everybody else. Something just triggered. Like I was working out and everything was good, but I was, probably 10 pounds heavier than maybe 12 pounds heavier than I wanted to be. I had 2 toddlers and working full time, busy schedule. My husband at the time, the military, they have exercises, they have TDYs, they have deployments. So it was busy. And I think back then I would tell myself when they get older, or I'll think about it. When this happens, I'll do it. When he stops traveling so much, I'll do it. But I a big believer too in like listening to or reading motivational, and even though that's important, you have to put action to it. So I read something one time that if you keep saying when I stop working so much, or when I stop traveling, or my spouse stops traveling, it's always going to be a win. It's easier to come up with, later, when it's not as busy, when the holidays are over, so it just snapped in my head that day when he asked me that. And I started training. Like I said, I started looking as soon as I got back to Tucson. And I think that has been one of my proudest moments. My pro card was great too in the fitness world, but one of my proudest moments that was in 2007 at the symposium.
Yeah.
I trained and trained and trained and trained. I competed in my first competition in Tucson and I got second place, but that qualified me to go to, I needed to place one more to go to the nationals. Right. So then I did the Miss Fitness Arizona and I placed first in the different categories. So I automatically qualified to go to the nationals. So it was a phenomenal moment because I went from sitting in the audience to a year later, I was on that stage. So I think that has always been one of my proudest moments for myself in fitness because I wasn't sitting in the audience. So, and that's what I mean by I've won first place in a fair amount of competitions, and those were phenomenal and I'm thankful for them. But my biggest, proudest moment in fitness was going from the audience to the stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
you brought up something good too. You were talking about how, it's always like, eventually I'll do that.
Yes.
And there's a lesson that I've been teaching recently where it's a circle of influence, and it talks about us taking care of ourselves, our family, and it's living an accidental lifestyle versus an intentional lifestyle. And so many people, majority of people, live accidental, and it's like, I'm going to start dieting next week, or I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start doing, maybe I'll do that later on. But it's those people that are really successful who are the intentional people. And they're like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it and I'm going to succeed at it. And they just go full throttle with it. So that sounds exactly like what you were doing. So that's a good message there.
Absolutely.
Then from there, 2012, World Beauty, Fitness and Fashion, WBFF, Texas Fitness Championship. That's where you earned your pro card. First, what was that experience like? And second, explain to someone listening that has no idea what a pro card is.
Well, it was phenomenal because I had already competed in different organizations, and my friend Sharon, who lives in California, was like, you need to do this organization. You're going to love it. Because up until that time, I was doing fitness, and the organizations I was competing in, they required the routines, like I told you. So the routines are so much fun. They're awesome, awesome, awesome to watch, but they do start beating up on your body, right? And so she said, you should look into fitness. It's very glamorous with the WBFF. And I said, okay. So I looked into it and I decided, okay, I'm going to go do it. It was in Dallas, Texas. And I went and did it. And it was my first time competing with the WBFF, but again, 4 years competing already. And that's where I won my pro card. So it was a phenomenal moment because it's one of those like, what? Did I just get my pro card? And so the pro card is what it is in competing with fitness, especially in bodybuilding, fitness, bikini, and so forth, is you go from amateur level to pro status. So amateur being, that doesn't mean I competed for 4 years as an amateur, and I kept competing and usually missing it. Like I competed at the Fitness America, and top 10 would go on to the second heat, basically the finals. And that's where they would place the winners. And so the first time you'd get on stage, when I went up there, it was a huge amount of women. I want to say in my division, there was probably at least 100 women. And again, this is the Fitness America. So top 10 goes on to the next level, and I made 11. I was so upset. And that happened 2 years in a row. So I was so frustrated. And actually, when I went to compete at the WBFF in Dallas, like 3 weeks later, I had already planned to compete again at Fitness America. So I had my plane tickets, everything, and I won my pro card with the WBFF. So I went ahead and stayed with them, because once you win your pro card in a division, you cannot compete with any other organization. You can only compete in your organization, or you have to give up your pro card. Yeah. So it was a phenomenal experience, because once you get your pro card, you're competing with, it's basically the creme de la creme, the elite. And with the WBFF, I got my pro card. And at the time I was over 35, but they didn't have, when you got your pro card, they didn't have, everybody competed at the same. Yeah. So whether you were 21 or 37, that's who you were competing against. So it was just a great, phenomenal experience. So it was really cool. But so that's what the pro card is that you are at amateur level, and then finally you'll get your pro card.
How long do you keep a pro card?
You can keep it for as long as you keep. I mean, it's yours for life.
As long as you're competing.
Even when you retire, but you can always say, I was an IFBB pro. I was a WBFF pro. I was, so you can always say I was a pro or am a pro. You keep it unless, again, you go compete with another organization, and then you have to give it up with that organization. And then you go compete from the beginning with another organization.
So you get it, you hang on to it, basically.
Yeah. No. And I personally love the way the WBFF sets up their shows and their competitions. It's a lot. Even though we don't do a fitness routine, the posing is very intricate. You have to have theme wear or gowns, and the guys too. The guys have to come out in like dress attire and like their swim trunks. So it's both. Yeah. So they want to see both sides of you, Yeah. So
I like that.
Yeah.
And also, you have ventured out into speaking events as well. Which
yes,
that is something that I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I said that Jerry Seinfeld once said more people would rather be in the casket than reading the eulogy, because that's something people are just so deathly afraid of, is public speaking. So what made you venture out and start doing that?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I've always been a chatty Cathy. So, I mean,
just
even
natural.
In elementary school, I'd get in trouble for talking too much. And, I think what started it was when I was in Turkey, they would come, the AFN, the station there, would come and interview me because they wanted to know about what was going on in base, the events, what we were going to do. So they tried me out like once or twice, and they're like, you're really great at speaking. And I had I competed in drama in high school at UIL level. So I did drama and I did speech and drama. Yep. So I did those. So I had that under my belt. I took it in college as well. And so I've always loved doing it. I never had issues with it because I just would get out there. And so that's how it kind of all started. Like it really clicked. I was comfortable in front of the camera. So it just really started snowballing from there. But when I started doing some motivational speaking and, or, going to, I was even part of a mastermind here in San Antonio. And I really felt like it was able to give me an audience where, because a lot of times they're like, thank you for motivating me. Thank you for helping me. I would always hear your little voice in my head and so forth. And again, it goes back to, I tell everybody, I'm just like everybody else. I'm not Superwoman. I don't have any special powers. I don't have any special potion. Trust me. So I think I like telling people, look, it happens to all of us, and connecting with them, and it just goes from there.
I think your message of just sitting in the crowd to competing the next year is like strong enough.
Yeah, it really was. And I tell people that story. I'm like, trust me, I was, I know a lot of people think, oh, you were probably already in good shape. No, I was definitely carrying, I was still like I said, my daughter was 2.5. I was still carrying, I think, some of the baby weight.
Yeah.
And, but, when you want to, my biggest motto has always been, if you want to see changes, you got to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all there is to it. And you got to put your ego down.
Yeah.
You got to set the ego aside and stop thinking, I know it all. I know everything there is, and I can do this. Set it aside and open up to learning.
Yeah. And so you mentioned, being a mother as well. One thing that's always just really intrigued me, even following like you on Instagram, how active you are. Yeah. With 2 kids, and you were so active. And a lot of, I say that because,
well, I have 3 kids.
Yeah. Oh, 3 kids. 3 kids. So
I tell everyone I have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 4-year-old. So I have 2 teenagers and a toddler. And I tell everybody the teenagers are harder.
Oh my gosh. I'm going through that right now. I can vouch for that. Yeah. So being, a mother with 3 kids, how in the world are you able to stay as active as you? Because some people are like, I stay at home, I have kids, I have no time to work out. So how do you keep as active as you are?
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people think, well, you're a trainer, it's easy for you, but it's quite the contrary. It's because when you've been at the gym all day working with clients or going over, like when I would go to their homes and train them or so forth, sometimes the last thing you want to do is work out. Yep. You don't want to work out, or you don't want to be in the gym. Because especially if it's your work, you're like, I just want to get out of here.
You're counting all day. I don't want to
be here anymore. Yeah. It's like, I've been here all day. I want to go. So what has helped me is that, and again, it happens to me too. If you don't start doing something, if you look behind you, as far as like, let's say in the last 3 years, you gained 10 pounds or 15 pounds, you can guarantee that's what's going to happen in the next 3 years if you don't start making changes. Yeah. And it's not that difficult. It's known as the weight creep. And I always go over this. I tell people, let's say you gain 10 pounds in a year. That, if you think about it, that's less than 1 pound a month, less. So you're not going to notice that if you get on the scale. So if I weigh myself on the 1st and then I weigh myself on the 25th, I'm not going to notice that much, right? Because it's less than a pound. But if you keep adding that, at the end of the year, it's 10 pounds, And I think that's what's helped me stay motivated, that I don't weigh myself every day, but I do weigh myself on a weekly basis, if not twice a week. Because even if people think, oh, the scale isn't that important. It's a good, it really does correlate where you are and what you've been doing. Yeah. So if I've had a rough December and I've been eating like crazy and not exercising, the scale's going to show it. It's going to show
right
it
now. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, me too. So it's going to show it. And that's what has helped me is that's one tip I can give as far as what's helped me is weigh myself at least once or twice a week and try to keep it the same, if not try to get it lower, if that's what you're trying to do. And you got to take it week by week, by week. Don't look at the long. And the other thing is because I have 3 kids, I have to stay in shape. I mean, that's the way I look at it because I can't imagine running around like I do. Like my son is just starting to drive, but I can't imagine running around like I do. Like, take me here, take me there. Can you do this? Can you help me? And being a single parent household, a lot of the stuff I'll be like, hey, son, help me with something. And we're moving a dresser. And I'm consider myself blessed that I have been able to stay healthy and stay in shape and keep myself going. One of the other things I told you about the stage thing was something I was very proud of. But one of the other things I've been super proud of was I told you I had a 4-year-old. Yep. And I'm going to tell people I'm going to turn 50 in September. Okay. So I'll be 50.
Wow.
So when I was 44, I found out I was pregnant and it was a complete surprise. Like I was shocked. I was like, what? And, I was shocked, but I was also scared because I was 44. There's higher risk factors for me, but also higher for the baby when it comes to disabilities and so forth. And so the doctor on the visit where they take your blood to check for risk factors, she took my blood, and then I went back like 3 weeks later to get the results. And she came in, she said, okay, I'm going to show you something. She goes, I'm going to show you what the risk factors are for different ages. I said, okay. So she had this piece of paper folded, and it was a bar graph, horizontal bar graph. And she said, okay, here on one side was the risk factors. On the top was the ages, 20, 30s, 40s, and so forth. And so the bar would go higher for every age, right? So the 20s, it was here, not that bad. 30s, the risk factors got even higher. 40s, they went way high. She goes, those are the risk factors. So it started worrying me because when she was showing it to me, I was like, are you trying to, kind of ease the pain here of what's going to happen? She goes, now I'm going to show you your results. And she showed me my results, and my bar stopped in the 20s. And she said, you have the risk factors of women in their 20s. And it was something I'm so proud of because after I spoke with her, I said, do you think me taking care of myself has helped? She said, I can't guarantee you that that's something that is absolutely showing that you have low risk factors for the baby. She goes, but I can definitely say it has without a doubt helped.
Yeah.
So that's something that made me feel good because at that point I've been taking care of myself for this long that it helped the life of my child. Yep. So that's why I always tell women now, especially younger women, I'm like, look, even if you don't have kids now, if you ever want kids, you've got to start taking care of yourself.
That's really good information right there. Yeah. Even people I talk to, like in their mid 30s, they're like, I feel like I'm too old. I feel like that ship has sailed, but that's really good advice. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. And she told me women my age have only a 2% risk, 2% chance of getting pregnant. And now, mind you, I know someone that she was close to my age and she had a very hard time. And I know circumstances are different. Yeah. But I think if you can do everything possible to help yourself and help, a pregnancy and the fetus is going to help tremendously.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So now that we're on, some fitness related stuff, I got a couple of questions here for you. Okay. First, what is your opinion of like crash diets, fad diets, all that kind of stuff?
I'm completely against them, and I'll tell you why. I could name a few, but there's some that are going on right now that are super popular, and I know I would get a lot of backlash. But there's some like crash diets or fad diets that most of them, the ones that I'm not very fond of, are the ones that cut out whole food groups.
Yeah.
So particularly carbs, they'll cut them out. And so they'll say, increase your fat intake or increase your protein or so forth. And quite honestly, there's different reasons why I don't like them. One of the main reasons being they're not sustainable, because you would have to live that way the rest of your life to keep that weight off. And you're probably too young to remember this, but Oprah years ago did a liquid diet. And you would think, Oprah, she should know better than that. But this again was a long time ago when, like I told you, we didn't know, we kept, kept looking. Medical research, scientific research has come out that has changed all that. But she did a liquid diet. She lost an enormous amount of weight. She looked fantastic. But guess what? As soon as she started putting solid food in her mouth, she gained the weight back. So that's why I don't feel crash diets. They're not sustainable. They just aren't. And I feel like you have a higher propensity of binging or gaining not just your weight back, but gaining more back. I mean, it even happens in competition. Like a lot of the competitors, and when I was training competitors, I would tell them, do not binge after the show. Do not binge after the show. I would tell them and tell them and tell them. And because you've been eating clean for so long, low sodium, low sugar, lots of vegetables, and then you go stuff your face with salt and sugar. It's an overload for the body at that moment. So that's why I don't like crash diets, because I just feel they're not sustainable. You're going to gain more weight back. Sometimes we don't have enough research to show if some of these fad diets don't cause more harm than good, like whether it's higher cholesterol or increase your blood pressure. So I just believe, like one of the number one diets, and it's been number one for a very long time, is the Mediterranean diet. And it's a very well-rounded diet. And you can find it anywhere. The DASH diet, which is dietary approaches to stop hypertension, those are good factors to look into. But if I could give a piece of advice, like when I give them to my clients, I'm like, don't stick to, don't do crash diets. I wouldn't do that, only because, again, they're not sustainable.
I saw an athlete was doing a Q&A a while back, and they were asked about their diet, and they were like, I call it the common sense diet. Is this good to go into my body right now? Do I need this right now? Do I need this large portion?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you track your fitness goals?
And this is funny that you mentioned this, because I'm going to turn the light on real quick. Somebody was asking me about competing actually today. And I told them, I said, I guess it was about retirement or so forth, because the last time I competed was 2019. And so I told them I want to compete for my 50th birthday, the World Championship, because it's in August. My birthday is in September. And competing, it really, like you said, you have to have intention and set goals. And competing for me does that. So it's not a vanity thing, which I think a lot of people think it's about vanity when people go compete. The first time people do it, like when the first time I ever competed, I did it as a bucket list.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, I'm going to check it off. Well, the bug bit me. I just kept going, but it helps me in so many aspects of my life, because when I compete, I'm more structured. I'm structured. I have more time management, as far as I'm more aware of what I'm doing, when I'm doing it, how long it's taking me. And it just helps in every aspect of my life, because when I'm more structured, more focused, it helps me as a mother. It helps me as a trainer with my clients. It just helps me in general. I feel better. I feel stronger. Less stress. So I just feel the way I track my fitness is, setting those goals. Okay, I want to compete. but also my strength goals. So it's not so much about how I look, but like before I had my son, I could do 10 pull-ups, easy, strict pull-ups, just do them by myself. Now I can probably do 2 or 3. So for me, my goals are I need to get stronger again. So I want to get back to be able to do 10 pull-ups without any help and just do them on my own. So that's another way. I measure my fitness through my strength, my conditioning, like, whew, I'm out of breath. You know, what's going on? I need to get on it. So, and I think we all, if you start becoming more aware of that, you'll realize, okay, this is how a good way to measure it.
How do you feel body weight versus actual weightlifting? Because I know when COVID kicked off, a lot of people discovered, wow, I can do body weight with a lot of with these exercises
Yes.
I've been doing. So how do you feel about both of those?
I think they're both fantastic because let me tell you why. I actually did a training, a class, and it was called Body Weight Burn. And all the exercises were done just with your body.
It's
That
hard.
was it. Yes, it's hard. And you
It's
know
so
what?
hard.
I'll have people come in that had come in and they'd be like, I signed up. I kind of want to take it easy today. I'm like, okay. And so then we do the training in the class. And when they're done, no joke, every single one of them has said, this is harder than the strengthening.
It's brutal.
I'm like, it's very hard because I think you have to be more aware of your body. You have to really engage your different muscles. And I think you become more aware of it. And
your form too.
Yeah, your form is like essential. Whereas I'm not saying your form is actually essential to with weight training, but when you're having to really engage that core, which you really need when you do body weight stuff, I think that's when people really start feeling it. So you're absolutely correct in that. You can get a fantastic workout at home that will kick your butt just with your own body weight. You don't have to go spend a lot of money on weight training equipment or anything. You know, if you're staying at home and don't have a gym, body weight is just as good. And you can incorporate, if you have a bench, step on a bench, do some tricep dips on the stairs, run up and down the stairs, plyometrics, stuff like that. So you can really get a fantastic workout with planks and jumps and push-ups and crunches. I mean, so much can be done with the body. It's unbelievable.
You were even using, like, I think, paper plates.
Yes.
At one point during COVID, yeah.
I have a paper plate workout, and I tell people because, a lot of us, you can buy the gliders if you want to buy them, but like in certain circumstances, those gliders may not work. Like if you have certain wood floors or something, it may not work. So you can just use paper plates. So I have a paper plate, and I think I'm going to load it up to my YouTube, but you can get a great workout on the legs. You can even do the upper body with paper plates. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think leg days might be my favorite, like, body weight one. And I've read this, it was like Hindu squats or something, but you try to do like 500 of them. And I worked out with this guy, and we did like squats on the rack one day. And we were like, okay, that was tough. The next day we did Hindu squats, and we were like, our legs were just trembling walking out of there because it is so hard.
I've had a lot of men. I had one that was a police officer. I had another guy who he lifted pretty heavy, and he came and took my class thinking again that, okay, I'm going to take it easy today. We'll see what this is about. And it was high repetition and tempoed. And he's like, that completely kicks my butt, completely. So yeah, I can do a leg workout, and don't get me wrong, I'll be fatigued, but when I'm doing legs or something with my own body weight with plyometrics or high repetition of stuff, you're just burnt out. So absolutely.
I did one of your classes at Davis Mothin, and I remember we were sitting there like, this is hazing. She's absolutely She's kicking it. She's embarrassing us. There weren't any weights or anything. It was just,
Yeah.
I remember going up and down, doing squats up and down the court.
Yeah.
It was so hard.
And you can absolutely, I'll never forget. I had it, if you can remember, there was a Marine, like a satellite Marine station right outside the gate.
Yep.
And I had he was a Marine officer, and he was training his, they were officers in training, their Marines, and they came to my class, and they had been doing CrossFit. So I think they came in, they're like, what is this rinky dinky little chick gonna do?
That's when CrossFit was starting to get really big.
Yeah, it was huge. So again, it was just, and I tell everybody, it's not that my stuff is so hard to do. It's just a different type of training. And when you're not used to it, it's hard. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's so important to be well-rounded. And I don't think it's always about go heavy, but to be well-rounded in everything you do. Don't just stick to just heavyweight trainings, go to high repetition or go to body weight work. Even yoga, so important. You would be shocked. Yoga is not easy. You would be shocked at how it helps you to start taking control of the body and your core. You'd be shocked, but it's hard.
Yeah. What about cardio? What's your opinions on cardio? Because some people are like, as long as I do cardio, I'm gonna lose all my weight. I'll be fine. Gotta run 8 miles a day.
Cardio is very important. One of the things that to me is so important is it's important for heart health. So I always tell everybody, even if you're not looking for weight loss, just power walk, just because the heart is a muscle and you need to exercise it. And American College of Sports Medicine, for heart health, we're supposed to be doing like 30 minutes most days of the week. So most days of the week, you're going to look at 4 to 6 days a week. For weight loss, you're looking at about 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say they also encourage you to weight train, strength train. And strength training could be your own body, just with your own body weight or with weights. And I just feel like both are important. Just like I was mentioning, yoga, like recovery is important too. But cardio is very important to exercise the heart. However, you have to incorporate some strengthening. You have to, because the way I tell everyone, imagine if you have a balloon and you filled it up with air, correct? You filled up the balloon with air, but then you let some of the air out of it. It's smaller, definitely smaller, but it's squishy, right?
Yeah. So
I equate, like if somebody, all they want to do is a lot of cardio, I equate that to the same thing. I'm like, you're going to lose weight, but you're still not going to increase your lean mass, muscle mass. So it's important to do the strengthening because yes, you're going to lose the weight. If you're happy just with that, that's fine. But I think it's important to have the strength, and for, especially for women, that we have strong bones. So I think you would have better results, not just in weight, because obviously the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn, even when you're not working out. So you would have better results overall, weight loss wise, but at the same time, you're stronger. It feels good.
Would you recommend cardio before or after a workout?
This one is a back and forth. And I know there's a lot of research on this. So just like fasted cardio, like most of the time when I go compete, I do my cardio early in the morning when I haven't been eating, and it's steady state cardio. It's nothing hardcore. But what is recommended, so like you don't want to have a full stomach when you go do cardio. So if you haven't eaten in like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours, doing cardio and then your weights, is good in that you can start getting into your cardio right away and, dipping into fat stores and so forth and burning through the proteins and carbs won't be as hard because you haven't eaten in the last 2.5 hours. But that also means you're going to be low energy. So when I weight train, I have to have something in my system. Like I can't go where I haven't eaten in 3 hours and then go weight train. I have to have eaten something. in at least an hour before. So me, myself, I get up super early if I can to do the cardio before I even eat breakfast. However, if that doesn't happen, I do the cardio after my weight training. And again, you can do it before. And the reason I say sometimes do it before, because what happens to most people? They do their strength training, and then when it's time to do cardio, they're like, I'm tired.
Do it tomorrow.
I'm gonna go. And guess what? I'm guilty of that.
Oh, I did it yesterday.
Yeah. Or if you're supposed to do 30 minutes, you're like, 23 minutes is all right. So.
I did it today. I worked out and I came back in. I was like, I'm done. And then I talked myself back into going out and running, but it was hard.
Yeah, it is hard. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, if you decide to do cardio after your weight training, you really need to be committed and disciplined that you're going to do
intentional again.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
What's your opinion on, it was kind of a two-part question. Pre-workout, like what do you do for some reason, I don't think you load up on C4 and, no explode and all this. So like, what is your opinion on something to get you kind of jolted before you work out? And then also that post-workout recovery.
For me, BCAs are important. I think it's definitely important to be taking some BCAs, whether it's pre and BCAs, it's kind of an anytime. You can do pre, during, and even post. But honestly, my pre-workout is coffee. I mean, I know there's some great ones out there, some fantastic companies that have fantastic pre-workouts. But at the same time, because I drink coffee, I don't want to dip into doing pre-workouts along with the coffee. Yeah. It just feels like it's going to be added stress to me. And I actually have a heart murmur. So I have a heart murmur and have a little bit of stuff going on with the heart. And so that's another reason I want to be careful about what I'm putting into my body. Yeah. And that's not to say those companies aren't safe, but those companies may not also know other stuff you're taking either. Like, are you a big coffee drinker? Do you drink a lot of soda? What else you're doing on top of that. So I think it's important for us to be aware that something in itself may not do anything negatively to us, but if we're combining it with something else. So for me, I think pre-workouts are okay because, like I said, there's some great companies and you want to do your homework on them. Yep. So I have people message me on Instagram and they'll ask me, what do you think of this? And I'll give them a couple of different companies that I think are fantastic, because unfortunately in the supplement world, and you probably know this, Strep, is that there can be a lot of people slap a label on a jar, on a bottle, and put a product out there. Mm-hmm. And it's probably not the healthiest thing to be taking or the safest, because the FDA does not regulate all supplements. It just doesn't. They don't regulate. It gets
revamped like 6 times over, that same supplement.
So that's the thing with that, is that they're not always regulated. So I think that's something that we need to be aware of. But yeah, I think, again, there's some great ones out there. If you need it, like, especially if maybe you're feeling sluggish that day and so forth, and you need something that's great, maybe find one that's good and reputable. As far as post-workout, and I'm going to go back to pre and post and be honest with you. Some of the things I use for my pre and my post, besides my BCAs, mm-hmm. I do protein powder, as obviously I do whey, but I think the number one is your nutrition. Number one is nutrition, because if you're feeling sluggish, I think you need to ask yourself, what am I eating? When am I eating? And also the other one, the big one, is, am I getting enough sleep? Yeah. Because it's taken me a while to really, because I've always been a person that was a light sleeper and didn't get enough sleep. So I'm like, that's just how my body runs. But I started realizing I get better results when I have enough sleep. It's essential, because get your beauty sleep. That's where it comes from. Everything happens when you sleep. So your body starts to simmer down and everything regenerates when you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's important to be getting your sleep, as you know, instead of staying up late or so forth, and hopefully not feeling sluggish. And then obviously what you do post workout can affect the next 2 days. So if you work out real hard or even run steady state and you don't eat anything for like hours after, you're probably going to have some fatigue the next 2 days. And then you won't even know why. You're like, why am I so tired? But if you don't eat in that threshold, refuel the body, even if it's with a protein shake, the window just stays open and you keep burning energy, and then you're tired in the next 2 days.
Yeah.
So,
I think the sleep thing goes undervalued. I read a book recently, Why We Sleep. It's a New York Times bestseller, phenomenal book. And I was one of those.
Oh, wow. I need to read that.
It's really good. I'll shoot you the link to it, but it was one of those where I was kind of like you. I was like, well, I only need 5 hours of sleep and I'm good.
Yeah.
And because I would go to bed at like 10:30, get up at like 3:30, go to the gym, and I'm like, it works for me. But then it like you said, you're like, I'm not getting the results I want. And also coffee. Oh my gosh, that has been like amazing for me. I actually met a flight attendant who told me that she drinks these little packs of Vietnamese coffee. And I went on Amazon and bought some. I'm hooked on it. I stir some up before I work out and take it. It's amazing.
Yeah. And when I was pregnant with my son, I wasn't drinking any, and then I was breastfeeding him. And so I went to half calf, and I've just kind of stuck to half calf ever since. So my body's used to it. And I think if you get on the right eating habits, get yourself situated with your sleep, you won't take so many pre-workouts. I mean, every now and then, but I think we've become strung up on energy drinks, energy powders, pre-workout pills. And, I think if we just started making some changes, they don't have to be all at once, but little by little.
Yeah. I'm interested to see like studies like 30 years down the road, someone who's been taking pre-workouts and then what that does to their heart. And I don't want to be that person that they have to find out with. What's biggest misconception when it comes to fitness, whether it's dieting, working out? What's the biggest misconception that you usually hear?
I think it goes back to nutrition and alcohol. So I think people don't want to admit or accept how much alcohol impacts your fitness. I mean, it affects it greatly. And I talk to people about this all the time and I'm not saying partying, like some people may say, well, I don't go out, I don't drink, but I'm talking even having those glasses of wine at home, right? It affects you tremendously because it slows down your fat burning process and it hinders your muscular development. So if you're here trying to strengthen or get more muscle, it's going to hinder that. And your fat burning is also going to slow down. So I may drink on a Saturday and my fat burning may not be back to normal until like Tuesday, or Wednesday, depending on how much I drank. So the body recognizes alcohol always as a toxin. So it's like a toxin to the body. So every time you drink, it says, okay, I'm going to put fat burning to the side and I'm going to take care of this alcohol. And that's where cirrhosis comes from, because that's how it affects the liver. The liver's in overdrive, basically. So it's a toxin. And so, I think alcohol is probably the number one, and nutrition as well. I mean, I don't think people realize, again, you can go to the gym every day, but if you don't make changes with your eating habits, and it's not just about eating like a bird, but eating the right foods. And when you're eating them, I think you won't see the changes. I think that has been I think it's the biggest misconception. They think, overdo it with exercise. Don't worry so much about the diet.
One thing you were talking about being proud of being in the crowd and competing the next year. I would say the one thing that I'm most proud of is I am 38 years old. I've never been drunk a day in my life.
Wow.
Yep. And that is something that I will tell people, and they're always like, really? Especially like the ALS classes I would teach. I would tell them that, and they're like, are you serious? But that's something I'm proud of. I'm just like really proud of that I've never can experience it. Can't relate to people when they talk about it. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah. And it's just a horrible feeling. Like I tell, like every now and then, like maybe once a month, possibly at the very most twice a month, I'll have some wine here and there. But I tell people, it's not so much because I'm a goody or anything. I'm like, but most of all, I don't like how I feel the next day.
Yeah.
You know, I either have a headache or I don't feel right. I'm like, that's the biggest reason. And with competing, obviously have been doing it for so many years. You don't really drink alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't, because it's such a strict plan. So I just got used to it. And I drank in my 20s, but once I hit like 29, like I just stopped. You know, I got pregnant. I just haven't drank really since then. So
I already aggravate people enough being sober, so I don't want to know how.
Yeah.
So what do you do? We've been talking about dieting, you know, what we're putting into our bodies. So what is something that you do to kind of curb your cravings when you have that sweet tooth?
Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me? You there?
Are you there?
Yep.
There you are. Okay, so something that'll curb my cravings. You know, and this is where, again, I tell people you really have to start learning about yourself, admitting it, and recognizing it. And for me, and some of my coworkers have seen me do it, and some of my friends, like I can have chocolate, and I'm a chocolate lover, but I'll take a bite of it, then wrap it back up, and then put it away.
Oh, you're better.
So, and that's it. Or like the other day, my kids had pizza. I came into the house and I sliced like a square off, and I took a bite of it. And I think what it does for me when I take those little samples is I'll taste it and I'll be like, it's good or it's okay. So, but it's not worth eating 2 slices and going backwards, right?
It's like the sample at Publix.
Yeah. But it's like I said, one of those things where I sample it and I taste it, and then, you know, I ask myself, is it worth it? But I will say this, one of the things that's my weakness is cheese. I don't have cheese. Really? Yeah. So I have to be careful with it, because like, that's the one thing, like if I like it and it's good, I want to keep eating it. So that's where, like, when I get on my plan, like this week is when I decided, okay, I really do want to compete for my 50th. I started, you know, started little by little, making the changes before I go in it head on the first week of January. So I've started doing more cardio and I started like with my egg whites and my spinach in the morning, but there was some cheese the other day and I had a slice and I just kept slicing.
It broke down.
So that's my thing. Like, I got to stay away from cheese. So that's where, you know, I let myself enjoy stuff, but at the same time, I know the ones that are going to get me. So that's when I feel like I recognize, okay, I'm going to have a little bit of, you know, chocolate and maybe half the bar, but the cheese, I'm going to put it away, you know.
Mine is chocolate, dark chocolate. I could just sit there like a kid from Willy Wonka or something with it.
You know, one thing that has helped me too with the chocolate is hot chocolate. Like I'll find a hot chocolate that's lower in sugar, or sometimes, you know, an okay amount of sugar, and that helps my sweet tooth at night. So I'll drink hot chocolate. So it helps. It's helped me tremendously.
That's a good question. What do you usually? I've heard people that they drink hot tea before they go to bed. They drink cold water. There's like trying to think of the name of it right now. But there's like this mojito mint flavored, almost like a supplement that helps you sleep better. Like, what do you usually drink or put into your body before you go to bed?
I have my dinner, whatever my dinner may be. And then when I'm going to bed, I don't do anything where it's like really cold. If anything, I do warm. And like I said, I may have a hot chocolate, a hot tea. So sometimes I will do hot tea. And then I take my vitamins and supplements. Because one thing, I have to take all my vitamins and not supplements, but vitamins from mid-afternoon to the evening, because I don't know if I mentioned this, but I have Hashimoto's disease. So it's an autoimmune disorder, which has hypothyroidism. So do the Hashimoto's, and this is where I relate to people because I have an underactive thyroid. I can gain weight very easily. It takes a while for me to lose weight. But with the Hashimoto's, you get a lot of other stuff. You can get hair loss, you can get eczema. That's where my heart issues come from. So I have a heart murmur, and I have moderate regurgitation in the tricuspid valve and they attribute it to the Hashimoto's because it can cause heart issues. I'm also, believe it or not, every time I go to the endocrinologist, even when I'm in full force, active, competing, super healthy foods and portions, I'm pre-diabetic. And so he tells me, I know I don't have to tell you this. He's like, but yes, watch your carbs. So, and it all stems from the Hashimoto's with the hypothyroidism. So that's another reason I really have to focus on my diet. And my grandmother had it. So I have the same exact thing my grandmother has. Luckily, she lived till she was 96, but she lived a very, very active life. She lived in Mexico. So when she would eat, she ate very small portions throughout the day, just very small portions. And she didn't know how to drive. So she walked everywhere. And she was up at the crack of dawn, mopping, her floors. She had these marble floors that got dusty as heck, and she would mop them every time. So everything that happens for me at night, I have to be careful of what I'm taking supplement wise and anything else, because it could affect my thyroid medication. I take it first thing in the morning when I wake up, and I can't eat for an hour, drink anything but water for an hour, no supplements or vitamins for at least 4 hours. So the medication works correctly. So, yeah.
That's crazy to hear, because just, on the surface, like seeing you, in person working out and then on Instagram, it's already like inspiring. But then you hear that everything you've been through as well, and you're still doing the things you do, and you're as disciplined.
Yeah. I mean, and I tell people, I wake up tired because, again, if you look at the symptoms for Hashimoto's, some of them are mood swings, some of them depression, some of them are fatigue, some of it's muscle ache, joint pain. And so on, I always tell people, when you see someone from the outside, it may look okay, but you never know what's going on. So like with me, as long as I'm controlling it and taking my medication like you should, it's great. But that's not to say I still don't have symptoms. Like, I went through hair loss, and luckily that has tapered down and gone away. I get flare-ups. They're called Hashimoto flare-ups, where it happens like once a year, sometimes twice. You cannot even peel yourself out of the bed because your whole body hurts, like just hurts. So, so I think, and again, it goes back to, that's why I'm also careful with my nutrition, and because I know when certain things flared up, cause inflammation. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, how, having to adjust this past March, COVID kind of forced gyms to shut down.
Yes.
A lot of people had to make changes. How did that affect you?
Obviously it affected me work-wise because I did lose some work, but at the same time, I had to change my way of training. So I approached all my clients and I said, I'll train you online if you're interested. So the majority of them said yes. Some of them were like, I'm just going to wait and see what happens and so forth. So I was training them online. So whether it was FaceTime or Zoom, I was training with them. And you talked about investing, like I said, coaching, I think too, is invest in a set of exercise equipment, whether it be dumbbells, a treadmill, something, especially if you live in a climate where maybe it snows a lot, or maybe it's scorching hot all the time and you don't want to be outside. So I think I've been lucky enough to have equipment over the years. And so if I wasn't training a client on a certain day, I would do a workout in my living room with my dumbbells. So, and kind of make it a hit. So high intensity intervals. So I would do like my weights and then a bout of cardio, some weights and cardio. And that way it kind of went by faster. So, and it helped me a lot, because that's what I think people don't understand, is that exercise is medicine. And
it really is.
Even just depression, it can decrease depression. From the statistics, again, I went to a symposium by the ACSM, and they said it can decrease it by up to 65%. So, I think that helped me a lot with like anxiety or depression or anything that I could have been a lot worse during the lockdown. Yeah. And it kept me going.
Yeah, my wife and I invested. We finally just said, you know what, we're going to take our garage. We're going to clear some stuff out, and we're going to make room for a gym. And we kept adding like little piece by little piece to where now I'm like, I don't even need to go anywhere. But I do agree with what you said.
I don't need a membership.
Exactly. We have our little instructor gym on base, and I haven't stepped foot in there since everything kicked off. But I do agree with what you said about it being medicine, because cardio to me is like clearing the mind, and the lifting and the body weight is like relieving the stress. And if I don't get my workout in at least 6 days, it's almost like I haven't brushed my teeth. I don't feel good. I don't feel right. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now you've already said a couple of the questions that I had kind of ready for you. You've kind of answered them with your 50th birthday coming up and your goal that you have set for yourself. So we will definitely keep people posted here,
for sure.
Especially after this episode. But where do you see yourself, not just this next year, 2021, but 5 years from now? Where do you see yourself?
I want to continue to helping people in fitness, without a doubt. I think through social media will be the main way, but I think I may veer towards a different career field, like possibly. I long time ago, I used to be in real estate, so I've considered going back into real estate. But fitness is always just such a passion for me, and I love learning about the body. I love learning how we can make those changes in our body to have positive results. So I think for me, it's always going to be a part of my life. And so whether I decide to stay in this career, because I've also done a lot of corporate wellness as well. So I could go back into corporate wellness and, really engage with people there. But for me, through social media, I want to continue to helping people. And like when they send me questions, I like answering them. So I think I'm always going to be active. I don't think I know. I will always be active. So because it just helps me. And now more than ever, because I'm going to be 50 and I have a 4-year-old. So I'm like, I got to keep up with it.
So if listeners on here, this is their first time being exposed to you, they would like to find out more information about you, training sessions you're doing, anything that deals with Nerissa Figueroa, where would you point them to?
I'm on Instagram, Nerissa Fit Pro. So the way you spell my name is N like Nancy, ERISSA Fit Pro. So that's my handle on Instagram, Nerissa Fit Pro. They can message me. I try to check my messages at least every couple of days. And then they can also email me at nerissafitpro@gmail.com. But also I'm on Facebook under Nerissa Fit. So they can message me there. I'm also there on my regular page, Nerissa Figueroa. So definitely would love to hear from anybody, or if they have any questions or so forth, would love to help, because again, that's something I love doing. And I think, as you know, especially even with the military, I think it's just so important for people to realize that we're responsible for taking care of ourselves and the choices we make. So, we can go forward and start making the changes, or we can not make the changes and we're just going to keep stagnant and just keep getting possibly worse.
Well, ma'am, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was great, because this was one of the first episodes we had where I had a good idea about the person that we're interviewing, but the more this conversation went on, it was a lot to unpack, and it was a lot of really beneficial information that you shared with us. So thank you for that. And
You're
also,
welcome.
I think that helps to inspire other people. So what final words do you have for listeners out there?
I think the biggest thing is understand that we're all in this together. That I know sometimes we feel like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym until I lose weight. Oh, I'm so out of shape, or I'm so unhealthy that if I start exercising, I'm not going to get anywhere. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. Even for the fittest person looking to make changes, it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah. Putting on muscle doesn't happen overnight. Losing weight doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and that we all started somewhere. We all started somewhere, and knowing that all it takes is one step forward and keep moving. And it's like I said, you have to do a little bit at a time. If you think you're going to attack everything and go in super hard at once, I think that's tough to do. I think everything in life, a little bit at a time, and then keep moving forward.
Well, ma'am, thank you. I know you had a house full of kids. I have dogs. Yeah. Everybody seemed to behave during this.
Yeah,
this
they did good. He's on his tablet, so that's why you haven't heard.
Oh, that was easy. Yeah. No, it's funny because the dogs were all barking before I got started. Yeah. I was like, this is going to be a disaster, but they behaved. They were very good. So thank you, ma'am. We'll have links with all of your information on this description as well. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you, ma'am. Trip.